I forget which practice day it was today, but we were in shorts. Same, you can get a lot done in shorts, but it's probably don't get as good evaluation from a physical standpoint. But I thought we did some decent things and got a lot of work in. And then tomorrow we'll go back to full pads and get a little more live period. Friday we'll be back in shorts, and then Saturday will be predominantly a scrimmage. There'll be some individual work and special teams work, but mostly it'll just be a scrimmage and have a full officiating crew and let them play, and that'll get a lot of good evaluating done then.
So, Rich, yesterday we got to talk to Ryan Garrett, so it brings up wide receivers. So, obviously your thoughts just in general, but also a few of the specific ones, including the guy that came with you from Jacksonville State, and Cam Vaughn. What's his ceiling? How has he looked so far? How good can he be?
Yeah, we have actually three that came, right, with Jack State. Cam, Jordan McCants, and Gerard Bowie. And Gerard's mostly in the slot. Jordan could play all of them, and Cam is playing all of them too. He's playing a little bit of slots too. But Cam's an athletic guy, was a high school quarterback, had a pretty good year for us last year, and still hasn't come close to reaching his ceiling. I mean, one of the fastest guys we got, and so and he could take hard coaching because we've been on him for a couple of years. But glad he's here. He had a pretty good day today. But all those guys, and I told them all three of those guys, the expectations for me or us are a little bit higher because they know the system, know how the operation works, and so they should take the next step in their development this year.
Is he your best deep threat, or do you have others?
We have others. I mean, Jade Bray can run. Justin Smith-Brown can run. Christian Hamilton can run. Logan Ramper's a big physical guy. He's a 215, 220-pound guy. And then Jarrell Williams and Preston Fox has been. I'm glad he came back because he'll help us in, both inside and outside and in the return game. So we got a pretty solid group. And then our slot. This is as good a selection of slots I've had. When you look at Rodney Gallagher and Man Singleton and Gerard Bowie. And even Armani Weaver. I mean, they're not big guys. Roddy's got good size, but we got some pretty dynamic slots, I think.
You're practicing a lot of guys. How much do you need to see before you start narrowing it down a little bit?
It's a fair question. The reality is I hope we don't have to narrow it down. It's as crazy as that sounds. I mean, obviously you got to have you can only put 11 out there, but I'm serious when I tell the team, and I've told you all, like, whatever the record is for the number of players playing the most plays collectively in a season, that's what I'd like to do. I mean, I like to play 80 guys in every game. But you got to be good enough to win with. We're not going to play a guy just to play a guy. But because, the way we do stuff, we're that obviously gives you depth. But we're hoping over the next 2 weeks that, we don't just have, we only have 15 guys on this side or 12 guys on this side of the ball ready to win with. I think we can have more than that.
Is that largely dictated by the tempo?
Not really. It's really just philosophy-wise of kind of, we try to be, kind of demanding in practice and run them, but we roll guys in and out. If you haven't seen a practice quite a bit. I mean, we're rolling 4 groups in, and there's, some young guys aren't going to be ready, and we're not. It's not a pipe dream. I know we don't have 40 stars on both sides of the ball, but we're trying to not necessarily to establish depth. We're trying to find as many guys as we can that we can win with.
How about operationally? You're working 5 different quarterbacks, and typically number 4, number 5 things get a little awry. Chaotic a little bit. How has it been for all those guys?
Yeah, we're people say, well, you got to let the guy go in there and get in a rhythm. Like, I wouldn't put a quarterback in there and have him afraid to make a mistake. He makes one mistake, he comes out. But at the same time, we roll him in and out like every other position. In fact, because we have so many quarterbacks we're getting a look at, that's even harder. So Rhett's managing that, and they're getting a lot of reps. And that's not the only reason why we're going to go live with the quarterback some starting tomorrow. But that's in our mindset is that we got to be able to see, because it's a really good group. I think each one of them's gotten better every day, and they should. I mean, like any other system, not just ours. The more you're in it, and the more reps you take in it, the more comfortable you're going to get, and that's got to happen in the next 2 weeks.
When you go live tomorrow, what's I guess maybe the number one thing you want to see out of them?
Just running the offense and, everybody said making a play, but sometimes you're in there and there's a busted assignment or, the quarterback didn't do anything wrong. It's just a bad play call or something, So we put all that into factor in looking at them, but just, sometimes, like I said, when you go live with those guys, maybe they break a tackle, maybe their ability shows up even more. Like I said, I've learned that in the past, so that's one of the reasons we're doing it.
Rich, you, Pat, Brett, all of you working with Travis some too, I guess.
Yes.
How are you guys handling that? How are you handling that?
Yeah. Well, I usually am the loudest guy, So, and then and Rhett's personality. I mean, Rhett's really sharp, but he's like the opposite personality of me, which is probably perfect because he's the one that's talking to on the headpiece there. And Pat's kind of quiet, but Pat's also helping me manage the situations on the field. So it's been a pretty good mix so far, but I have a tendency to kind of like jump in the middle of it a whole lot, and Rhett and Pat understand that, and so do the quarterbacks. Like like yesterday, I met much with the whole team, some of the film. And there'll be times I'll run with the whole offense, and then there'll be times I've run with the whole offensive skill. And then just about every day I'll be meeting with quarterbacks at some point during the day. But it's been good. I think because we all have our different personalities. I mean, the way we approach it, I think it makes it easier for us to manage it.
Do you see a future for a current coach in Pat?
Oh yeah, Pat's got a little bit of experience. He obviously knows a lot of the system, but it's been almost 20 years or so. So there's a lot of stuff in our offense that we weren't doing back then, and some of the stuff we're doing back then we're not doing now. So Pat's still in the process of learning all that, but he's got a good demeanor about him. Him and Rhett both. I mean, like I said, I needed that because I needed a calmer, kind of analytical kind of guy to kind of sit him when I'm screaming at him, because I'm kind of loud, and out there I see something, I say something. I don't usually wait till the next day, and sometimes it's good to wait a little bit and tell them something. So, like I said, Rhett is really good about that. He knows the offense in and out, and Pat is learning it very quickly. So, I'm pretty fortunate to have both of them.
Colorado's got Dion, who is a star. You don't often see stars that become, dynamic coaches. They probably have other opportunities, et cetera. Pat was a star. Can you see him?
Yeah, and I've even heard, Bob, it's funny because I think I heard somewhere that somebody said the guys that were the superstars or whatever have a hard, struggle a little bit being a head coach because everything was like easy for them or whatever. And that's not the case. Those guys are, they earned that kind of status, like Pat and Coach, Deion Sanders, and they earned their status. So I think it's just on the individual. I think, there certainly is a lot of sacrifice from a time standpoint that you make as a coach. And a lot of guys that are great athletes don't have to make that time commitment. They can, do something that isn't as all-consuming as coach is. So a lot of them don't look to go in that track. They go in a different track. And I talked to Pat about it before, we talked about it. I said, Pat, you want to be a coach, this is it. I mean, go all in. And you're starting all over again, so to speak. And, jump in with both feet. And I know you can help us, but this is a chance for you to kind of jumpstart your career too. And he's been doing that, so it's been really good.
You talked about the running backs. You have Noel Devine as well on the coaching staff. How big has he been in that transition with the running backs to try to learn this offense from somebody else who also played in it?
Yeah, same thing, Noel. And he's got a great personality. Noel is always, he's excited to be out there. and this is really his first realm. I know he coached a little bit down in Florida and was coaching some, teaching speed. He had some speed camps and doing other stuff down there. But he's a natural football coach. I mean, in recruiting, I could see it in recruiting. His personality and talking to guys that we recruited and all that. He's going to have a great career in coaching, and he's still learning, but he's got everything it takes to be a really good one, I think.
A lot of people are doing two spotting now, and obviously you can't be with both groups when they're going at the same time. How long does it take for you to get through that, and do you look at the tape of the group that you're not with a little bit differently than
when we do, that's a good point. When we do the two spots, or what we call back-to-back, a group going here and a group going there, we're trying to look at both. In other words, a lot of coaches are in the middle, and then we don't run this play until after this group runs that play. So they run a play, we look at it, and right away I'm turning our head and I'm looking at that play. So we're kind of trying to get double the reps, and we're able to coach a little bit on the field, but we, the majority of it we correct on film. But that's like anything. I mean, you can see something out there, but when you go, we film everything. And when you watch the film, you can really get into detail to it. So we've been doing that more so now in this camp than I've ever done it before. And I'm doing it because, one, we got to evaluate so much, but also because it just makes more sense. What you don't get is you don't get the whole field. In other words, you got about 35 yards this way and 35 yards this way. You like to have like an extra 40 yards so you're not everything. You got some more deep balls and stuff like that. But it's allowed us to get a lot of guys a lot of reps.
it requires you more time to watch it, right? So you have to
a lot more work as coaches. You got double the amount of film you got to watch.
Right.
That's the part. That's one part of it.
Rich, you've had a history of guys who've come in as recruits as like tweeners, I guess. They could be a slot receiver or a corner. They could be a quarterback or a receiver too. How do you decide? Like, where do you begin and decide what his best avenue is?
Yeah, you hope. Yeah, like nowadays, I wouldn't hesitate to play guy both ways if you could do it, but you hope you don't have to. But you just try to get the best athlete you can, and then and I think it's fair to ask which position do they want to play at, because usually you get them there, and that they'll be more excited about that. So we'll always ask the guy, if you're a dual player on both sides, which one do you really want to play? And then we'll give them our honest opinion where we think they can have the most success at. And then if we got to change after we get here, so we'll change. But there are, I would think there are, a lot of your best high school players, of course, play both ways, right? Why wouldn't they? And that's a good thing, But and we've got some of those. I don't think, and to your point, there's not really, and there's usually is some guys that we're looking at like, maybe we'll switch them from one side to the other. Right now, I don't think there's that many that we're looking at that, and it's not because they don't have the ability. It's just because I think we got some competition in all of them.
I mean, the two guys you've named are different. Like Weaver could have been a corner.
Yeah.
Looks like he fits the slot. And then Vaughn, you say speed and quarterback. That sounds pretty inviting. And he had to become a good receiver. How did those end up going those ways?
Yeah, when we were recruiting Cam Vaughn out of there, and he was a good athlete, we told him right from the jump, said, listen, you might get a day or two or a week or two at quarterback, but we think you could help us a lot earlier at wideout. And that's exactly what happened. He moved right away. And I sometimes forget that Cam doesn't have a lot of experience at receiver, and didn't have a lot until we played at Jack State. And that's why I think his ceiling is still way out there.
Weaver?
What's that?
Weaver?
I like what Devontae's done at the slot. I think his future is right there.
Coach Nealon was at practice the other day.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about your relationship with him post West Virginia and now that you're back?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I played for Coach when this place was first built. Worked here as a volunteer assistant, as a student assistant first, and then a few years after that as a volunteer assistant, and then obviously took over for Coach when he retired. So we kept in touch a little bit. When I was in, a few times I was back up this way. He called me a couple times on some guys, but it's great to see him. He's obviously a legend here, and did a lot of things for our program.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.